Maybe I'll just go festival. There we go. And do image search here. Okay, and you can see you've got here. This is a cool one here. Music Club presents Space and Sound Festival. What is that? That'd be September 20th, 2020. And go to the website right there, and it's got some graphic, right? So save image as. We're at broadcast composition, and I'll just call this as the concept, right? But now I've done that as the concept. Now I need to find things like, well, some assets for space, maybe a planet or two. I got to take this guy if I want to animate him and take him into Photoshop and clean him and rebuild him so I can have him animated in it. Space Sound Festival. I wonder if there's an actual Space Sound Festival logo. Space of Sound, so there's an actual logo element to it all. Okay, so I can take that now and use that as a 2D or conversion of a logo. Put that in the assets folder. What about audio and or music? Well, look at this. I'm gonna go to online library here. Because I have to find music because it isn't an existing ad. It is an existing. So let's go to all resources, browse by type. I'm going to go find audio and sound effects. Now we've already used audio blocks for that's where we got the music before the videos before, right? So maybe I want to find a cool audio block video there of, space or something like that. I've already got the smoke and the fog I used last week. So let's come here. I'll go to footage. Actually, let's go to backgrounds here. Let's type in something like space. Maybe I can find some cool galactic kind of video, nebula. Or kind of like that right there. Let's just go with this one here and download it. I could also animate very easily space. And then this is another resource we have through our library. You see it gives us the password, AI-library@ai.edu, and the password is library music #1. This is a site here. It used to be called firstcom.com. But if we click it, we then, of course, have to type in the login information. See, login. And that was, again, I can just copy it. Right. And the password I can copy, so I don't have to type it. Now what this is, it used to be called FirstCom, this is a free audio sound effects, okay, kind of site. See, please select company, so you choose your campus here, which is, you can now just go with that, since that's closest to Tampa. And what are you looking for? Space music. And you can see it's going to give us albums, all these different variations of sound. So I'm just playing this one. You can also say what beat per minute, what mood, what genre, what era, what country, and so it's all free, copyright free music that we have access because I only need 30 seconds for that. increase the beats per minute. Okay. How about this here? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. See something a little more massive and cinematic. Okay. All right, so all we got to do now to save this is download it. It's going to download it to the download folder, which means we're going to have to go snag it out of the download folder. So I call infinite space audio. Okay, I can even get sound effects and start to propagate my folder with sound effects, or if you know. Let me see here. What was the download folder for Flight to Space? That's the video. All right, so I'm starting to build up some content, right? So this is now where I need to go and start to either use Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop to break the poster up into its pieces, right? So I can animate it in it separately. So you can use Photoshop, you could use Adobe Illustrator. I think in the tutorial of how to get the logo, maybe I'll use that. Maybe I'll use Adobe Illustrator for the logo, but I'll use Photoshop for the poster. It is not a TV, sized poster here. It is vertical, and it's going to be in JPEG, and it's going to be, different size issues. So this is where we typically want to go with a new file. I can go to Film and Video. I can find my 1080p, 1920, 1080, 72 right here. That's horizontal, and hit Create. And you see, this even gives me my grid lines, whether I want them or not, or layer. You can see where I can even hide my white background if I don't want that. But this is now where we can come and we can take these pieces and just as a concept here, come over here and just start with so this is similar to the process I did with the kinetic type. On earth is my workspace settings. Workspace, essentials, default. Okay. So pick an easy to read font. So remember, just following our, but I'm going to go to something a little more futuristic here. We're probably going to be going against dark, so maybe I want to deal with a light color here, which means I can now come and get rid of my background. Again, I can always make this even a black and use an invert at the time that I go into working with this inside of After Effects by simply inverting. So Music Club presents. I can come here and I can save that off as, shot 01 if I wish. And I can put that into my composition as a PSD. Okay? And that's simply because the first thing Music Club presents is the first thing we see. I can always change that and animate that in Photoshop or in After Effects as well, but at least I'm building almost like I'm building the storyboard now. Okay? Let's see, now I have more info. So I need to make one that says more info at WW Music Club. Music Club. Musicclub.com, yes. Okay, not worrying so much right now about going gangbusters with actual design. I'm just thinking about, okay, and this was, if that's shot, let me see here now, if that was going to be shot 1, This one, maybe I'd have the guy separated here, flying through space. I have the actual logo. Now, it'd be nice to know I have the date, and then so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would actually be shot 5 now. Okay. Let's go ahead and get the date on here. So it goes again, I'm just thinking in terms of the shots. 2009, 2020, not really all that important, but just to get the information in there. Let's do that. That should be shot 4. And then I'll have one that'll be the logo. Now again, I could use that design logo there, or I'm actually going to use Illustrator now, create new, film and video, 1920, 1080, and hit create. So I'm going to use this as my logo layers. Now, one of the reasons why I'm using Illustrator is because recall that Illustrator is going to give me a vectored version. So maybe I want to have the logo be more three-dimensional. What if I want to make it shiny and reflective? Plus, it allows me to scale up a little bit easier. So let's see here, assets, logo. Okay, so this is how we break apart graphics inside of After Effects. So I'm going to take this and move it off to the side. So I just held in Alt to get a duplicate. Now I'm going to select this one, and we're going to do what's called the vectorizing. So I'm going to do an image trace. Okay, recolor should do it. Now you see there's some sloppiness in here, so let's go into the options and maybe take it down to advanced, ignore the white. Okay, still getting some weird sloppy blue here, and you can see the festival here is kind of sloppy. So maybe instead of 3, I'll do 2 colors. That really got sloppy though. So obviously, if this can't be vectorized, it might be better for me just to recreate that here in Illustrator. Try going to a black and white logo. There we go. That's looking good. E. Now I can borrow an E and use it here. And I did lose that blue. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so once we get this kind of vector here, I can hit the expand and ungroup button. But I also have to go back to an edit color of RGB. Now I can take all the white, you see, and get rid of it. My shortcut is to select same fill color, right? And now you can see why I kept this one over here is because I can now, I'm going to put this in a layer. This object arrange center current layer so I can drop it underneath, line it back up, lock it, because now I'm going to take this S, P, and S, object arrange center current layer. I've got this space of sound, which I'm going to pop up into a new layer. Okay. I've got this word festival, which is pretty much all that's left in this layer. But I am going to do a little cheat here because go in here now. You can see it's not the perfect font there, but I don't want to really just guess what that font was because then I'd be betraying the actual logo design. Let's go ahead and do that. Object arrange center back. I don't know exactly what the blue color is, so I'm just going to put temporary blue. Eyedropper, select, here we go. And the cool thing here is I can simply round out, right, just like that to get the blue part. So you see now that is all on one layer. And then finally here I've got these. Now again, I could do this in After Effects if I want. Let's go ahead and make a new layer. Ellipse. So they don't look like they're exactly. Okay, let's go ahead here now and just duplicate that layer. So I can get this one here. Go ahead and now duplicate that layer. So I'm just showing you ways to work smarter, not necessarily harder. But each of these are going to go on their own layers so they can be animated independently. So I can build this logo if you wish. I just find it's better to sometimes do the rebuilding of the logos in Illustrator just because you get a better version of it. Okay, see, now I got my layers of everything. I can actually go and unlock the background, the original one here. So I have just this here. Now this is just going to get called and saved as logo, or maybe SPS logo in the assets folder. Now remember, if I want to just use this as a 2D layer, not 3D, I can save it as an Illustrator 2020. If I want to actually do something in 3D in After Effects, I have to save as a version 8 or older. So sometimes it's best just to save it as an old version. It's in the compression that After Effects wants an older version of the Illustrator. It doesn't want compression, stuff like that. All right. Now that logo is going to end up being shot 3. So all I really have left to do here now, actually, let me go ahead and lock that and duplicate this layer. Because what I need to do now is cut him out and maybe even have a couple variations of his arms or something like that. So I'm just going to keep this nice and simple here. And start by just trimming him off that blue background. Because I'm going to have him kind of floating in midair. I'm also going to take out this space and sound. Okay. And let's just do a cut and paste. Oh, I had it locked. Oops. Okay. Bit of that background I don't need. Now let's go ahead and remove, oops, the right layer selected and contiguous is on. Okay, because I only want to get that blue that's there. Okay, something like that. Now, when we go to cut stuff out in Photoshop, in order to eliminate the possibility of getting that halo of blue around him, do a selected mask, you see, and then you can choose the black on white. So you can see what I've selected is the white. And then I'm going to come over, I'm going to smooth it a little bit, just a pixel or two. And I'm going to shift the edge. I can even do a little feather, just a tiny little per pixel. And then shift the edge a little inward. Then hit OK and delete. See, and it prevents it from getting that kind of sloppy halo along the outside. Now that's a pretty awful looking JPEG I'm working with here, but I'm gonna have to make it work. And now I can come over, maybe switch to a different tool. Okay, like so. I've got some more blue in here, which I need to get rid of. Like so, I kind of just took it all away. And now I need to do some repairs. So you can see here even how to do some repairs. Where I can take an eyedropper of that color. Paintbrush, I don't know why you're doing this to me. Why does it look like it is locked? Just start to repair that. Something cool here to utilize, by the way, is the clone stamp tool. Smaller. And I can borrow, oops, I can borrow this stripe here. If you're familiar with the clone stamp. Okay. Here, just bang, bang. Now in the really world, I probably want to cut his legs apart and have them as separate layers, right? So that I can animate those individually. And that's the way I have that tutorial, which I provide on how to, it's actually, it might be in YouTube, I'm not sure. And again, I can even fix that little part of his. What you see now, what I've got is I basically have it cut off. Let's go ahead and move this little piece here. Select mask, smooth, feather, expansion, get rid of it. Even here, I'm going to grab his helmet value, select a mask, smooth, feather, shift edge. Okay, and watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to use the eraser tool at a low opacity. So it looks like it's actually glass. Now, if I wanted to, like I said, I could cut this up so I could have his head be a separate layer so I could add rotation. In fact, that sounds really, really cool. So let's go ahead and separate his head. Looks good right there. X and V. Okay, that'll allow me to do some rotation on his neck. Okay. And if I wanted to, again, I can puppet work and cut out his arm, this arm, so this hand could go back and forth or something. I could have his feet, you know, his legs separated into two different layers there to kind of get that. But the point I'm making here is now I can get rid of the original underneath there, and now all I have is this little asset of this animated dude. And I can go ahead and I'll leave it the size it is right now, but let's go ahead and just save that as. And this should be shot, I believe this should be shot 02. Okay, because shot 03 will be the logo. All right, so I'm using Photoshop, I'm using Illustrator, I'm cutting things apart here like this. Now, Launch After Effects. Now I can actually start to bring it all together. Yes, After Effects. All right. Now, the cool thing about this now is because I already set them up as the proper composition side in Illustrator and Photoshop, right? All I need to do is just go New Project. Now, when I import, I can go File, Import. I can go right-click, Import, File. Let's find the correct folder. Okay, and I'm going to select Shot 1, for example. Very important though, you see it wants to bring it in as a sequence. We do not want the sequence. And that's because it reads it as a numbered sequence. Deactivate sequence and import, remember, to composition, retain layer size. Right? Hit OK. And now you see we've got the folder with the layers, but it's only one layer anyway. So all I have to do is double click to get it up. Okay, let's go ahead and import the next one. Shot number 2, composition, retain layer size, import. Okay, double click. Now that one is not 1920 1080, so I'll have to do something with that. Import file, shot 4, composition, retain layer size, no sequence. Double click. Oops, that did not work. Let's see, 4. Here we go. Import file, number 5, composition, retain layer size, turn that off, hit import, double click 5, and even here, import file, broadcast composition assets. There's my SPS logo. Also bring that in as composition, retain layer size. That gets me my logo size. Now, what's weird about that setting of the composition is that it did not bring that in at 1920 1080. So let me go ahead and just tell it to be 1920 DVC Pro HD 1080. Nope, that's 1280s. HD 1080. There you go. Right? That's the true 1920 1080. I can also import file, find my audio, bring that in, all right, and import file. Let's find that video, and then get that loaded in. Now you see I've got my basic shot 1 through 5 here, where 4 is SPS logo. I can even rename it if I want. But remember to create a new composition here, and I'll call this my master composition, where I can now, in the master composition, even if I leave it here, rearrange these, each of my compositions are down here, very similar to the way I did my kinetic type. Now I can come in here and say, okay, music, waveform, spacebar. My preview has full screen on it. Now, if you recall, okay, the minimum length here of my composition settings, when I made a new master composition, it's at 8. So let's go ahead and make this be exactly 30 seconds. Expand the blue to show the full 30 seconds, and you see right now we're just looking at this where it does this and kind of goes. So maybe what I want to do is actually have the audio start about here. Let's crop. Because I almost want to have enough time here to have 2 of these audio pieces peak up. But of course, if we're going to do that, maybe right here at here, key my audio level so I can have it actually fade up. So I'm keying my decibel level down. And then here at the end, I can repeat by adding another key. And the end and having it fade. Okay. So that now I've set my timeline based on the music. Full stop. Now, these are my shots. Now, what these shots are, whether it be shot one, whatever, you see, these are basically set to 8 seconds. Obviously, having it say Music Club Presents may not take 8 seconds. Okay, maybe, but so I can come in here and say, well, you should be able to read something off 3 times. Music Club Presents, Music Club Presents, Music Club Presents. I'm saying this could probably be done in 5. Okay? Music Club Presents, Music Club Presents, Music Club Presents. Basically took 4. But now I can go to my master comp and say, all right, shot 1, right, needs to be at the beginning. Right? And have it appear right about where the audio peaks. So now what I'm doing, instead of just thinking in terms of like a storyboard process, I'm actually starting to develop an animatic. Right? So that would be my shot 2. I can tell you already shot 2, which is this guy. I probably want that to last a little bit longer than 8. 8 was just a default because that was the length we worked on before. So maybe I'll have this work 16 seconds. Actually, let's go with 18 seconds. Just make sure when you do that, you see you've got to expand it because it was brought originally 8 to last the full 18. But my master composition, you see I need to stretch that out as well. Then we're going to go to shot 3, which is the logo here. Let's go ahead and drop that in there. Now, when is a good time for the logo to appear? Well, probably right here where this music changed, if you recall. Right there. And that will be a good time for our logo to animate onto the screen. Okay. Then we get the shot, let's see, shot 4. Shot 4, I'm going to have come in right here where the music changes again. That's going to be the date. Doesn't really have to be that long. Remember, we could always come in here, change the length of the composition. It's only going to be about 4 seconds for the date. Go back to our master comp. You see now it's only 4. And then I'm going to get this little peak in audio right here. By then the guy will be gone. And this will be now shot 5. With the final animated logo that will take us out. So right now, you see it's kind of got a little bit of an animatic. Go ahead and Control S here just to save. Comp. Get my composition here. And I can call this whatever I want to now. Let's see, let's call this broadcast comp 01. Okay, now that we can save the generations here. Oh, and I forgot one last thing on our master comp here. Where's our video? Okay, and let's see, our video says that it is 30 seconds in length, which is perfect. But I'm going to do some interesting stuff with here because you can see how that's kind of just zooming or flying in there. Okay. Now this is where we have some really cool ideas here because I really want to just kind of shortcut this all. I can literally effect, channel, invert, see, just to get that to be there. And then I'm going to copy and paste that onto my other assets I brought over from Photoshop there, right? Just so I'm dealing dark on light or light on dark. So right now I've got this composition built up and timed out properly to get 30 seconds. Now it's just an issue, kind of like we did with the kinetic type, is to come into shot 1 and animate how I want this music club presents. Come into shot 2, animate how I want him. Now, this is where it kind of helps to kind of go to the composition settings here and just go ahead and make it 1920. I'll leave it at 1920 wide. There. Now, be aware, it's a lot taller, but that gives me the ability of animating them, because if I go and make it be 1080, I may cut him off. Let's see. Inversely, let's unlock. There, see, now I've got him ready to go at 1920, 1080. So essentially what we've got going on here now is we've got our master comp kind of set up now to start to, in almost like an animatic or a storyboard way here, of having each piece come on when we need it. Now what we can do is we can go into the individual shots if we like, and we can start to think about, okay, how do I want this to work? How do I want this to animate? Now I can work with just the Photoshop layer and just have it appear or animate onto the screen or something like that. But I'm actually going to have some little bit more fun with this, in the sense that I'm actually going to use the actual text tool here inside. Let me turn my title action safe so I can see it. So I'm going to use the actual text tools here inside of After Effects to do a much better version of what I'm going to have in the master comp. So I just used the Photoshop one to just kind of say when and where I want this to happen. Now, go back to Photoshop a second. Because what we use here in Photoshop is I want to know, what is my font? It is Mishmash BRK, 100 points. Okay. So that means here, if I want to recreate, for example, shot 1, I'm just going to click with my text tool, come over here and tell it to be, maybe I'll go a little larger, 120. Find that font, Mishmash. There it is right there. Go with a white, which means I'm going to turn off my transparency. Well, oops, I guess I need that because I need to say Music Club Presents. See, and I can go turn that off now and see what I've got. Now, this might be an issue of going back to my poster. Well, I guess I need to look at the original poster. Oh no, it would have been my concept. So I do believe it had a little, yeah, Music Club and then Presents was small. Okay. Just do this. This would be 75. How about that? All right. Drop that center. It's got center justification in the paragraph. Now, from beginning to end, how do I want this to appear or animate? Well, since I'm using the text tool, I don't need to have my PSD here anymore, so I can either turn it off or just delete it. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to think about, how do I want this to animate in? I'm going to use some of these presets, animation presets, text, and I'm going to use these interesting blurs to kind of work here. So maybe what I'll do is do an evaporate and drag that onto the text layer. Now the evaporate is an animate out, okay? So what I need to do is go into the settings for the text, the evaporate animator, range selector, and I need to reverse these values. So that it's now going to evaporate onto screen instead of evaporate off the screen. And I'm going to put a 20 frame difference there. And then I'm going to go to the end here, select this last key, copy and paste it, Command C, Command V, go to the end of my time, highlight my first key, Command C, Command V to paste. So now this first shot, I guess it should be there, and just a little here. So that now if I hit the space bar, you see how it's going to animate on and animate off. Okay, let's look at our master comp, and it should automatically do that. The problem is that now my inverse or my invert doesn't need to be needed. Okay? So I have this Music Club Presents, and then it fades away. Now, I can do a couple other really neat things to this at that point. For example, I can toss in a drop shadow just to have it kind of pop a little bit against that black background, just like that. With the opacity, do a little bit of softness to it all. All right. So I have that now revealing itself on the screen. Pretty simple stuff. All right, let's go over shot 2 is him animating. So I'm going to wait on him. Let's go to shot 4. And now I have the date. Now again, I could do this same process here, but watch what I'm going to do here. I'm actually going to borrow shot 1, which has this animator on it, right? This Music Club Presents, and I'm just going to Command C at the beginning to copy it. Go to shot 4, paste it. Okay? So that I can just take this date, 20/09/2022. 20/09/2022. So that, turn on my action title save to get my grid, put it in the center. And now I can hide my PSD version. Let's go over to Master Comp, and you can see now that needs to have the invert removed. I can even borrow the drop shadow from the first one, copy it, and place it onto now the date. Now we're going to animate it and double check that it animates at the end, which it doesn't because it was a shorter clip. So let's make sure in our text, our keys, the evaporate, are set in the proper spot. So copy, paste, copy that key. Select the first one, copy and paste, and now paste it at the end. And now, this now should have the date fade up and fade out. All right. I can even come in here and do the same thing, of course. Invert, copy that shadow, paste it to moreinfoclub.com. But of course, now I need to go to this one. And once again, I'm just going to select my text, copy, shot 5, paste. Okay, make it last the entire length. Which means, once again, we're going to need to move our text keys for our evaporate. And this one needs to be more info at www dot music club .com. Let's go ahead and put our action title safe grid up here so we can see where its center is. Just like so. And again, I can hide my Photoshop version of it all. So that's what that's going to do. Let's double check the animate in. Okay, and I have a fade out, and the master comp should identify it. Well, now you see this is a little too, this piece here is a little too long. So maybe I'll just overlap it, see where the end is. Okay, so you see we actually have about a half a second. It's too long. So go ahead, adjust this composition settings. So this one was set to 8, so maybe I'll go to 7. And you see now I've got this at the end. Let's double check our composition here. Here we go. You see it's just a bit late there. So I'll just come back to my 5 and have this just be in a little bit. So as one fades, the next one reveals itself. So let's just see this right now, what we got. Just starting to add some text. All right, let's talk about animating the logo. Okay, let's go to our SPS logo. You can already see one of the problems is we're dealing with black on white. So then again, we're going to have to take that invert away. Again, I can borrow, like I did before, the drop shadow from this layer, or this comp. Just paste it to the logo. Get the drop shadow. Let's go to the actual logo now. Now, here again, I want the black to be white, not black. But this is why I actually kept Illustrator open here. Because the cool part of this is, I can change these colors in Illustrator, fill color, white, see, very quickly and easily. And as long as I just resave this, Control S, After Effects will update. See that? It's kind of convenient. And now I want to think, okay, now I've got this element here. How do I want this to build itself? How do I want this to animate itself? Well, I've got tutorials out there on YouTube, for example, with how to animate a logo. I believe I have that in that section, that module on how to animate a logo and break it apart using Illustrator. So there are some cool little cheats. Okay, so if I want to assemble this logo over time, right? One of the things I'll do here is I'll just get to about, maybe I'll get to, maybe I'll go 1 second here. And then I'm going to highlight all my layers here that make this animate. Okay? I'm going to open up my transform nodes and I'm going to key position. I can then go back in time, a little bit of time here. And what I'm going to do now is because I set the key where I want it to be assembled. Now I want to say, how do I want this to appear on screen, right? So maybe what I want to do here, let's go ahead and select the, oh, that's just that one blue, okay? So maybe I want this blue to fly in from the right, this blue dot to fly in from there, this blue dot to fly in from there, this blue dot to fly in from there. The word SPS can come from the top. Space from sound can fly in from the top, and this festival piece here can fly in from the bottom. So just because, so what I've done, you see, is now it's animating onto the screen. The problem is they're animating at the same time. So maybe I need to now go through my layers here and do what's called a stepped progression in time. So what would be the first thing that comes up on the screen? It's probably the word SPS, which is right there. Okay, so that's going to come on screen next. Next, it would probably be the Festival of Sound. So I'm just going to offset that by about 10 frames. Then comes this next component, which I'll offset by 10 frames. Then comes this, which I'll offset by 10 frames. So now you see by just moving the layer, that what animates first, second, third. I almost don't like the fact that the space of sound comes in from the top. So maybe what I'll do, this one right here. Okay. Which one are you? I think it's that one there. Okay. Use my eyeballs. That's that one. So instead of it flying in from the top, I'm going to swap it into the bottom by simply going where that key is, here, and I can have it fly in from the bottom now. Just like that. Okay. Last but not least, I'm going to have these little blue circles. Since my last key is getting it to there, I'm going to grab these 4 blue circles, offset them so that they don't animate on screen until about here. Let's see if they hit the space bar. SPS, Space of Sound Festival, and then they fly in. Okay. And then they fly in. Now this is a cool thing to turn on, of course, the motion blur for all these layers, just because it'll now give it more of a speed element of some motion blur as they fly in. See? I could also come in here to each of these, highlight the keys, okay? Right-click keyframe assist and do an easy ease. Oops, not easy ease out. I want to do keyframe assistant, easy ease. There we go. And I'm going to do that to each of these. Highlight the keys, right-click, keyframe assist, easy ease. Now, easy ease is, again, an animation principle. Slow in, slow out, ease in, ease out is basically what it means. And that's just the animation principle that says that things don't move at a consistent speed. They start slow, they speed up, and they end slow. And I'm going to do that keys for each of these layers. Easy ease. Ease. And that will just make the movement look much more natural, much cleaner, much more professional looking, because it moves in a more natural fashion. It's not a consistent linear speed. Who are you? Then next layer, layer 1, this is here. Let's see my layer 1 here. Oh, the word festival, that's weird. So where's my second key for the festival? Remember this, it's only got 1 key. That might be an extra layer. Okay, so that was just an extra layer there. I guess we don't need that. I can get rid of it. All right, so logo animating in. See? Now I'm going to get a little more creative with this too, because watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the SPS, the very first layer here, right? You see it coming in. And after it sits there for about a second, okay, I'm going to activate the 3D layer. So again, this is talking about a little bit more simple basic of using the 3D layer, because the 3D layer I showed in the video that I recorded and uploaded using, again, vector, it doesn't use the classic 3D, it uses the Cinema 4D. This one, I'm just going to use the classic 3D. And once again, you'll notice when that's active or not active, here in the transform nodes, we have X and Y. We have one rotation, but if I turn that on, I now get X, Y, and Z capability. Now, what I'm going to do here is keep a Y rotation, and I'm going to do 2 rotations in the Y. 2 full rotations. Watch what that does now. So it's only going to happen here between 3 and 5 seconds. I'm assembling my logo, and I do 2 full rotations, right? Don't forget, much more natural movement, keyframe assistant, easy ease. Watch the difference now. So now it's not going to rotate in a, now it's going to speed up and then come to a slow, and it just gives us better quality. Cool. All right, let's go to our master comp now, take a look at what we got in adding that logo. So I'm going to use a little different technique to animate that. And I'm going to hold off on animating him still too. I'm not going to animate him because I'm going to do some just random movement with him. But now we can start to think about, okay, now I've got the timing and the pacing and everything coming on screen in a nice manner here. Now let's think about, how do I want these things to now not just appear, but maybe be integrated into this neat zooming video. Go ahead and save. And to do that, I'm going to activate the 3D layer, okay, on the video and all my shots. Because now I can come here to Layer, New, and make a camera. Now I'm just going to leave it at a 50 millimeter right now. Maybe I'll go to 35 millimeter. That gives me a little wider angle lens. All right. And this is where we can switch now to a 4 view. Now, why am I going to switch to 4 views? It's because it's going to give me a studio layout so that you can see that my camera, which is what I have selected, let me just move it up to the top. Well, my camera is what's represented here in this top-down view. So what I'm going to do with this in the top-down view, okay, maybe I'll move it back a little bit. Go ahead and transform, and I'll key the position and the point of interest. And then down here towards the end, right, I'm going to push in Z space my camera to animate it moving through the scene. Don't have to go fast. You see, this is my actual camera view now. This is just the front view. But in doing so, right, now you can see where I need to stack up from front to back the different layers. Okay, so we go ahead here and find my video. Okay, go ahead and open my video, transform. Okay, so now I have my video selected. Now my video, I want it to be, and you'll see it in this, look at the top-down view here or the side view. You can see where I'm moving the video into Z space. I'm pushing it back, which means I'm going to have to, of course, scale it as well so it fits the entire frame. So this is the one we want to look at, but you can also see now my camera is moving through the scene. Yeah. And so if at the beginning here, you see my video is here, see in the top down or in the side. Now I'm going to take my shot 1, which is the first thing we see, and figure out where in Z space I want it to be. So I'm actually going to move it towards the camera a little bit. But of course, when we move it towards the camera a little bit, I'm going to want to scale it so that it fits the frame. And now what this illusion is going to be is it's going to give us a moving camera through our scene. And these things as they appear are going to be moving towards the camera, but really it's the camera moving towards them. I'm just stacking them up in order here. Or you can see here, you can go here, just make that be black. So again, that is our shot 1 is right there. There's our camera, there's our shot 1, which means if that's shot 1, shot 2 is going to be shot 2. There it is. Okay, so now our shot 2 is going to be a slightly different distance from our camera. So I'm just putting these things in the order. So now we get here to the logo. We push the logo back in Z space. Right? So it's now there. And finally, let's put shot 4. Have it be back in space. Now you see I have to stack it up to find it. See where it is now? And I'm going to put that shot 4 back there almost to our background. Okay. Very simple. All I'm doing is rearranging these in space, in depth. So let me go back and switch now to our 1 view, which is our camera. And you can see now how this is going to work. Let me hit the space bar. Now, obviously, the RAM preview is slowing down here, so this might be a good point to go to quarter quality view, just because it will save us some RAM. And now you can see the problem we have with, back to the 4 view here to see. Yeah, see this one, this last one here, shot 5, I never moved it back into space. So it should almost be there right at the end. Okay, so I'm just going to move these guys around a little bit more. Now I'm finding that my pushing in on this camera is a little too slow. So maybe what I'll do, just to exaggerate this a little bit, is maybe add some forward movement to our layers just to make them look like we're flying through them. Okay? So again, I'm going to use this here to base, because I want to basically have this give this very cool kind of animation process here. So I'm going to put a key for position there. See that right there? And I'm now going to keyframe, oops, not going away, but towards the camera, to make it look like these are kind of flying past the camera. Okay? Just like that. So now, as this camera zooms into Music Club, you're going to see we're going to fly past it. Let's go ahead and look at our second shot here. Again, I can establish here where I want him to be. Position. Right here, right about now, where our logo starts to animate. Let's go ahead and animate him. Flying towards the camera. And I have no animation on him yet. See, I can also, what's cool here is have him even fly a little bit up. to the side so that he's going to look like he's just going zooming past the camera. See that? Let's find our logo. Here comes our logo. I'll keep position for the logo. And it fly past into the camera. In fact, make sure that at the very end here, we'll say -125. Larger number. -300. See, and I'm trying to get to a point here where, see, I'm going to literally go whipping past there. So it's no longer, now it's behind our camera. See, so it's going to look like it's flying past the camera. Okay, now our date. It's going to animate past the camera too. 4. Transform, key position. Go to the end of it here where it starts to dissipate. It's going to fly past the camera. Past the camera till it's gone. And finally shot 5. Let's key its position and get to where it now can fly past the camera. So not only are we pushing a camera through it, but we are flying, we're flying through that layer so that you see these layers are ending up, they're visible still, as if they've gone through. All right, let's double check this. Let's go back to one view, spacebar. Like I say, it's getting too big too fast here. That's an issue with going to just playing around with scale, because scale will give that illusion also of it kind of zooming in. See? So it almost tells me that this needs to be scaled. A little bit more. Go. All right. Cool stuff. What else now? Let's worry about animating this guy here. Okay. So that is our shot 2. That's this guy. Now go ahead and go on the black here, because you remember I gave it 2 different layers to play with. Now remember, I'm in quarter view, so let's go to full. Okay. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to randomly add some animation to this guy's head. But in order to get that to work right, because you see I can do a rotate, but in order to make it work right, I need to get my anchor point to his neck. So I'm just moving the anchor point. Put it back on his head. Okay. I can even, if I want to really be careful here, is parent the head to body. Now it goes wherever the body goes. But watch how I'm going to animate. Okay, watch how I'm going to animate his head. I'm going to type in wiggle. And I'm looking for a wiggle rotation. I'm going to drag wiggle rotation onto his head layer. If I hit the space bar, you'll see how it randomly makes him wiggle. Now I can come here and play around with the speed, maybe do a speed of 2 and an amount of 20. So I just increase the speed of the wiggle, but you see it's randomly wiggling. To kind of get his head bobbing back and forth. Just like that. So I've got his basic kind of movement of his head. Now, if I had different layers, I can animate that. Remember, you could always go and find that tutorial where I show you how to break apart a character and animate it using, break it apart in Photoshop and then use these wiggle deformers basically to just add random motion to it. All right. Now, how am I going to animate his body? Let's see here. Maybe I'll do that in the master composition. Because he does kind of appear out of nowhere. See that? So maybe what I want to do here is, let's see here, this might be an issue of, I want him to kind of be there, so again, I'll put it keyframe, or maybe I need to do that in 2. Yeah, I'll do that here in 2. So I'm just going to key his position and his scale here. Go to the beginning of it and change where his position is. Maybe I'll have him start way over here, halfway in between. I'll have him kind of float around. You see I get these Bezier handles to give me smoother animation. Increase the scale. We have him kind of move around like this. Over here. Just like that. You go ahead and select all these keys, right click, easy ease, and go to my master to see what he's doing there. Now it's kind of not getting the right movement on over there. I want him to stay over here. So that. Go back to our master. There we go. That's kind of what I'm looking for here. Definitely needs to have. I never did the scale factor. That's right. Scale here. Then shrink down over there. Ease, put some motion blur to it. There we go. And something else I could do here to kind of add some dynamic element to it all is back to the wiggle. Now that it is just one layer here, let's do a wiggle rotation on him here. So that's his whole layer. And I'll make it be 30, but I'll make it maybe much slower. So let's just look at what that looks like. Just trying to make it a little bit more dynamic as he's coming in. There we go. Right there at the end. So that tells me right there that I really don't need this to last longer than that. So let's go ahead and take this and walk it off. There we go. That's I can even have blur to it. So that my logo can come in and my final piece. All right. Lots and lots of little additions here. Let's see what this is. Let's not forget some important stuff here. Gotta include this to our video. Video needs to fade in and out. So I'll go to opacity, at the beginning, and fade to 0. It's black. Always really want to make sure we do that, so it doesn't just jump and scream and yell from the very start. We want it to fade up, so just like that, and at the end we want it to fade out. Go ahead and save temporarily. All right, now we're cooking. We're starting to really get this to build. Okay. But we got some other elements that we can play with here. For example, the one I did last week, opening title, see my videos of smoke. Flying with the clouds at night, moving to smoke on transparent background. There we go. Just get this to be my project folder. Okay, so I just have this little clip of smoke here. And what am I going to do with this smoke here? I'm just going to place it, okay, just so I have this little layer of smoke, just to create some depth to it all. Now let's go ahead and key the opacity right there. And at the end, I will repeat that, key 100%, add fade to black. Now you see right now, it's on the screen the entire time because we have yet to designate it to be a 3D layer. So what I can do with this smoke, now that it's a 3D layer, my foreview, and where do I want this smoke to appear in the Z axis? Maybe here. Break this up. I'm going to scale it, move it up. That. I can even change its blending mode to be, overlay or some other blending mode, so it blends in a little differently. Let me try. There's screen. So it just adds a little bit of more three-dimensionality to it. Pushes it all together. What is that? Oh, that's the logo. All right. Even when we get really close and zoomed up like that, guys, like that, check, go to a full quality view here. You'll see it actually is pretty full quality. But I can also change, again, the depth of field on my camera, so things that get close to the camera would automatically blur out. Or I could keyframe a blur on there so that, when it gets close to the camera, it fades out. All right. Now we're going to have some additional fun, just to show you. Oh, you see my smoke is. Now, what else can we add here? Well, we've got some time to have some fun. All right, we go back to my links, online library, by source, browse by type. Let's look at more audio. I'll go to audio blocks here. And what am I going to find here? Let's go to sound effects. Okay, and let's go with a swoosh sound or something like that. Like whoosh, swoosh, whoosh, flash, whoosh, swoosh. I like that right there. Okay, go ahead and download it. Now, the difference between downloading, if you don't know an MP3 versus a WAV, MP3s like MPEG-4s are compressed, meaning they're a lossy quality. So every time you work with them, they lose some quality, whereas waves are lost less. So let's go ahead and just download. I'm just going to say this as go as a wave. And then let's see here. There's also this lower pitch. No. Kind of like that. well. Yeah, go ahead and download that. Let's go check our downloads. Where did you get my email? Oh, here they come. Okay, deep low whoosh. Where did they go? That one. A little bit of a delay when it comes to downloading all these sites. There it is. Okay. Our folder for audio. Back up here to our file. Drag those two sound effects in there. And this is where, when things go past, right, when they go past the camera, I can drag them in here, open up the audio for it, waveform to see where it peaks, and like that, so that now when I go full quality, let's go back to order. Like that. Let's try doing this one. This is a little shorter. Try. Even here, I can just simply hit duplicate. Offset that so the whoosh happens as it goes by. And so you could add these subtle sound effects quite easily, just to kind of accentuate the fact that these things are going by. All right, let's minimize these. And see what the added sound effect does. We can just keep building and building and building upon this, okay? I mean, it almost plays a little bit like an opening title, except it's an advert, it's an announcement of this festival, you know. But I'm gonna do a little bit more here, just to keep playing around with some of the eye candy that we have. Okay, so we can put that more here. Watch what else I can do here. Let's try this. Clear it, texture. And do an image search. And what you're going to find is you're going to find, obviously, you've got earth and so on, but these are these textures, see that, which are kind of cool, that are unwrapped. See, there's earth. Maybe we should play with earth. All right, so this is just an unwrapped texture, which means it's tileable. But watch what I'm going to do. I'm just going to save it as. In my assets, I'll call it earth or something like that. It's PNG, and save it. Now, what on earth am I going to do with that? Okay. Now let's import it in here. Okay. And I'm going to drag it into our comp. You see, nothing really all that impressive here. Let me go ahead and make it 3D layer. That will mean I can then go to my 4 view my for view here, set up where I want this to be in Z space. Maybe I want it here where, yeah, I want it here where he's kind of coming on screen. And I'm going to put it off to the right. So let's see, where's he at? That should be right there, right? Let's see, he is shot to, oh, shot 2 is all the way there. All right, so I want the Earth to be in that same area. There we go, right about there. We're in between, just a little past it. Okay, but watch what I'm going to do with that Earth texture. To do that, I can actually just go back to my one view. This is pretty cool. Watch this. Effect, perspective, CC sphere. And you see what it does is it gives me I can convert it to a radius, right? I can control where the light is coming from, okay? And the color of the light, which means I can even come here and go with a little bit more of this pinkish light, see? Light direction, maybe I'll have it come from the right-hand side. No, it actually should come from the left. I only need this to last a short amount of time. Or maybe I'll have it last the entire amount of time. How about that? You can see here, I can even key the light intensity. So it fades in and fades out. Which is kind of cool. I can designate where I want it to be in time here. Yeah. Now you can see I need to animate this a little bit here so that I'll have it start in the beginning. Animating, but maybe smaller. Okay. Now let's go into the transform for the sort of position so that by the time here, before the logo, let's say I'm going to have this, I'll have this fly by the camera. Off to the right instead of that. But watch what I can even do with it here. So it's going to fly past the camera. Watch this. I'm also going to key rotation. Okay. So give it a little bit of tilt on these axes and key rotate Y. Let's do this, and that will allow me now to key rotate Y. Is that rotate the right way? And I think we rotate this. Yeah, I'm just going to give it some rotation. Get my keys for that. Okay, so it shows me my keys. So right here, I want it to end after it flies by. And what's really cool about that, now you see, I've even created that planet, that Earth, using this. From there is our good old dude just flew past it and hit right there. See, he went through it. So what that tells me there is our dude, shot 2, needs to have some change in his trajectory. See that? I mean, I can even play around with him here. So as he flies in, I can even play around with keying the Y rotation in some places. Like here, I can actually have him turn towards us a little bit before he exits. I just want to get him so he doesn't go through that dynamic. Just like that. There we get a basic broadcast graphic announcement in advertisement. Now, obviously, if I knew who was playing at this festival, I could put their names and have their names pop up, and do all this stuff. But you get the idea. All right. So now it's just an issue of saving. Now, when it's time, of course, to make the video, we can either add to media encoder. Don't go to add to render queue. Render queue does not have the proper H.264 setting. And I've had a few students actually say that their computer, their download of CC did not even include H.264. And I think there's a bug or something going around, some patch because of that. You can also go to File Export to add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. Okay, this will launch Adobe Media Encoder, which is, again, another software to download, which will allow us to then choose the settings of the requested file delivery. Okay, which is .com. Okay, a 1920 1080 HD 2997 MPEG-4 H.264 compression. So here's Media Encoder loading up. You'll see it will make a dynamic link server right here and pop up. There it is right there. The steps are basically this. Click on the word H.264. This will allow you to double check here of how it actually will look. Do you have a bunch of extra junk at the end that you forgot to trim? Format, H.264. Now, if you don't have H.264, you can do it as an MOV. You could do it as an AVI or a QuickTime even here, right? You can do it as a QuickTime movie. But I prefer H.264s because it makes the file size small enough to upload because we have a 2 GB limit. I can go to presets here. You see, I can go to YouTube 1080. But the general rule is match source right here. Match source, which means it's matching the settings of the composition we created. Output name. Got to double check that because you see it's not going to the right folder. Okay, I can come here. This would, of course, be named your last name, broadcast graphics, graphic. Okay, put that right in the folder. And then again, we've also got some cool stuff we can do here. I don't know if you know this about the Media Encoder, but it's all kind of new. We can publish to the cloud, publish to stock, publish to Behance, publish to Facebook directly. We can go in the video settings here and change video settings like encoding. Okay, we can add effects like change the whole color of things. See? By using these different filters. Ooh, that looks pretty cool there. Just added a little bit more gold to it all. See that? Kind of intensified this gold rush lumetri look. That's color grading. You could do it right here. Hit OK. Nothing happens though until we actually hit the green arrow to render it. And we see the progress. All right, so let me see here. This looks like I finished. Let me just clear out my Media Encoder. Recall, of course, when you're all done with your project and you don't need to render it anymore, I always go with a new project, edit, purge, all memory and disk cache. This basically says, yeah, I've got 24 gigabytes that my computer has eaten up just making this project today. So clear it out. Get those 24 megabytes or gigabytes back. Okay, otherwise it'll be stored, until you decide to, eliminate it. Let's go ahead here and let's look to see at our broadcast comp. Here it is right here. Last name, broadcast graphic.